You have questions?
What is slashing?
We have answers.
Slashing is, like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And there's a penalty for that?
Yeah. You do that, you go to the box, 2 minutes by yourself, and you feel shame, and then you get free.
This is CBJ in 30.
Anything you folks want to know about the fascinating world of pro hockey, here we go.
Tweet your questions by using the hashtag CBJIN30.
We'd like to remind you folks, keep your questions within the boundaries of good taste.
Here's your host, Bob McGilligan.
And welcome to another CBJ in 30 for this Thursday, the 5th day of June 2014. And this is, without argument, not even close to an argument, the biggest show that we have done yet. It just keeps getting bigger. Yesterday, one of the newest Blue Jackets, Simon Hjalmarsson, signed a contract, and he came up here and he went on the show with me yesterday. That was big, but today is absolutely huge because rejoining me in the broadcast booth, right where his broadcasting career started in the fall, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to my side, Jody Shelley. How are you, buddy?
Great, Bob. Thank you for the warm introduction back in the radio booth. It's been a while, and I'll tell you what. The last time I sat up here, there was a lot more excitement in this building than what is going on right now.
Yeah, it's hard to look at the concrete floor out there, isn't it?
Concrete floor, seats rolled up. And you know what was disappointing was walking by the up in the media booth area here. We have popcorn, coffee, soda, chips, pretzels. It's all dry.
Yeah, there's like some boxes out there. They're doing work. There's a bunch of dirt on the floor that came from the drop ceiling, and that's it, which says it's summertime at Nationwide Arena. But it's good to have you back. I really appreciate it. Let's start this show out before we get to talking about the Stanley Cup Final. A lot of things have happened for you. You've had some changes over the last couple of weeks, and I know people have tweeted in some questions, and I'll get to those. But congratulations on your move to the TV booth. You know for sure I'm going to miss you over here, but we're still going to do plenty of work together. But to me, really, it's very well deserved.
Well, thank you, Bob. And, the broadcast team is something I learned a lot about this year coming into it. When you leave the playing role down on the bench, focused on yourself and your teammates, you don't really get to appreciate what goes on in the building and what goes on behind the scenes. You see the broadcast team traveling with you. You see them on the plane. They're in the scrums asking questions. But I learned a lot about this group, and I'll tell you what, you're the radio broadcaster, and I was thrilled to be a part of your team, your teammate, but we're still teammates because we travel together. We have the same goal, and that's to, deliver what is happening on the ice from the behind the scenes and the product, Game Time Live. And it's just been a treat working with you, Jeff, and Billy, and Dave Metzold, and all those guys, the guys on the pregame show. So, I'm thrilled to be where I'm at. I learned a lot in a short period of time, and to be with this organization, I think that's the most exciting part for you and I. So, looks to be an exciting year, and hopefully the team, the team will be picking up where they left off. They have no choice.
Well, I just wanted to remind you, once you get to the second round of the playoffs, there is no local television, so I'll always have a chair for you if you want it.
Well, I would definitely want it because, if you listen now, I was listening to some goals that were scored last night in that game, and it's the radio broadcaster that gets the call on the radio. I don't know if people pay attention to that.
It costs us a lot of money to pay those networks to do that.
Really? I mean, I don't know, but you got the LA Kings scoring their first goal, and you have their radio announcer, or whether it's Game 7 in overtime of the last series, it's not Doc Emmerich's call, it's the radio announcer. So I know that's where, and that's a big deal for you guys, people listening, for Bob when he gets that chance in playoffs to make those calls. I would love to be next to you in that in the second round.
Well, all right, well, we'll put that down. I'll put it in pen. I'm not even going to put it in pencil because we plan on being there. No question about that. Let me just get to some of the questions because as we're talking on this subject, let's just knock this out right away. And I think there are some good questions. Like Tim Kresman has this question, and you can send your questions by using Twitter and using the hashtag CBJN30, CBJIN30. Tim wants to know, what was the biggest thing that you learned being on the broadcast side this year?
The biggest thing that I learned, and I think I just touched on it, just what goes on a regular game day, a regular practice day, the work that these guys put into it. It's incredible. There's preparation. There's not just, and it's not just the basics you'd think they would know, not just positions, name pronunciations. I think I butchered pronunciation there, but numbers. It's not that. It's it's knowing the other team. It's watching and having conversations with other broadcasters, GMs, coaches. All those interactions are valuable, and it's really being accessible, making sure your time is available to the players when they're available. That's something as a player that you don't understand. You think that everyone's on your clock, and you kind of, I guess you don't really, you're selfish in the sense that, oh yeah, he can wait another hour and a half outside of the locker room to ask me those 3 questions. That happens a lot. I just think that the work that is involved with this job and these guys that have done a great job up here with the broadcasting is a big part of it. But another thing is, and I've said this throughout the year, when you're a player, you work hard, you train, you work hard for your team. You would show up at game time and the lights are on and the anthem is on time and the people selling the popcorn and the seats are filled. There's a lot that goes on into this process, this big business that as a player you kind of keep your head down and really don't pay attention to it. But when you get to hang out in the offices, you realize that, man, there's a lot of moving parts to this production.
Somebody asked me the other day, and I answered the question, but I'll throw it at you now because you're here. I was asking the question, if Pierre McGuire were to get the Penguins general manager's job, which has been a lot of talk this week about that.
Do you believe that, or do you just think it's hot air?
I think a lot of it's hot air.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to happen.
Here's the thing. Pierre McGuire is the one basically saying that Pierre McGuire is being interviewed for this job. So I don't know. But
he definitely has a stage to say that.
He does. And he does have, if you look at what he's done prior to the job he has now, he has some background. I don't know if it's good enough for that job.
Well, he's won the Stanley Cup there,
yes,
right?
As an assistant coach, yeah. And he's done scouting, he's done assistant coaching and all that stuff. But somebody asked me, if Pierre McGuire leaves to take a GM job, how soon before we lose Jody Shelley to go to national TV? That was a first day question.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's a really high compliment. And, if I were to answer that honestly, I would say I really don't have an interest in going to a national level. It's not my goal to be a Pierre McGuire at this stage of my career. The excitement and the thrill for me, and this may sound like something I've been prepped to say, but this is the truth. I love being around this organization, and I think you do too. Seeing the ins and outs, interacting with Jarmo Kekalainen, John Davidson, Todd Richards, the assistant coaches, there's value in that. You're a part of a family here in some sense, and part of this whole organization. I see myself, that is where my thrill is. It's being associated with the organization. So to be a freelancer, working for NBC, traveling from game to game, showing my knowledge on the league, it's not really where I'm at, but thank you for the question. There's none of that. I'm signed here, and I'm thrilled about that.
I've said my entire career, people talk about ESPN and that being such a big stage for most sports, and I've always said when you're part of a team, yeah, it is different because you're kind of part of that family. No matter what you do, you still get that respect because you're around every day and you're not floating from this game to this game. To which I also said I think Eddie Olczyk has a pretty good gig because he's part of that Blackhawks family, but then he gets to kind of double up and still be a big guy in the league and go see a lot of games. But for me, and I don't know, you've only done this for 1 year, so I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, I like to have a dog in the fight, if you know what I mean. I like to have a team that I know the guys, and I want them to win as much as they want to win. And I've done a lot of games where I don't care if this team or this team wins. It doesn't really matter. And to me, it just takes a little something out of it. And, I don't know if you feel the same way or not after doing it 1 year, but I would imagine as a former player, you'd like to have one side to root for.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I think that's part of being on a team. And, you talk about the wins, but how about the losses getting on the bus and the plane? It's not enjoyable. We enjoy it more on the plane when we're eating our ice cream or whatever we're eating, when the guys are upbeat and they're making fun of us on the way by, like, sit a meal out, guys. Only supposed to eat 3 meals a day, and here we are on number 8. So
that's a lot of fun. Harry Bruno has this question for you, and you talk about all of a sudden jumping all over the place. Does Jody want to get into coaching one day? That's question. That's the first part. Number 2, as a player, what coach had the greatest impact on you?
Well, number 2, let me start with that. The number 2, the coach that had the greatest impact on me, and I am so fortunate with my coaches, and if I'm going to speak, I'll go. I mean, I can go, Bob. You saw us in Johnstown in the minor leagues. I was fortunate with the time I had with my coaches, Scotty Allen, Gary Agnew in Syracuse. But when I got to Columbus, Dave King would take me and spend individual time after practice. Now, I haven't seen this since I came to the NHL, since I did that. But Dave King would take me, head coach, one-on-one for 7 or 8 minutes every single day and work on my footwork or my stick handling. And he could have just said, oh, that guy's too slow. What's he doing here? Get him out of here. Or that guy can't stick handle the puck. Get him out of here. He took time out of his day after he spoke with the whole team and worked with me. And I think that in itself, I was very appreciative to be here, but to have that moment with Dave King was every day was something else. I sometimes felt silly because, some of the guys that I'm battling with for that position and the ice time would be like, oh, look at Shelley over there. They're probably saying this, saying, look at him over there getting the one-on-one with Dave King. But anyways, it was a huge thing for me, and from there, that really developed into a nice relationship and really springboarded me to be more calm in this league. But all my coaches have been great. I've loved John Tortorella. I loved Hitch. I mean, all those guys. I've been fortunate, so I can't say a bad thing about one of my coaches.
When you talk about Dave King like that really the thing that jumped out of my mind was that's probably why he was the first coach of this franchise, because his background was as a teaching coach, and obviously he was trying to make everybody better.
Yeah, and he was Mr. Hockey Canada when I was a young boy in Canada, up in Canada. He was that guy. So for me to meet him, first of all, then him to have a conversation and know my name was a big deal. But then to spend time and doing a little hockey school after practice, yeah, he had the patience for everyone, though, I felt, too, except when we had like a 7-game losing streak. Boy, he could get mean and tough, which he had to.
Now, Justin Farrell has a question for you. I already know the answer to the first part because we covered it all.
Oh, I didn't answer the second part to that. Would I be a coach?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I forgot about that.
Now, sometimes I think I would be a coach, but not right now. I mean, if I could coach my son, I guess. Right now I'm coaching T-ball.
How's that going for you?
It's great. I think I'm an excellent first base coach. I mean, I'm really excelling in that position. I hold them up at first. I'm not waving them through on overthrown balls. None of that stuff.
Are you allowed? Do you have to go station to station in T-ball?
I think you're supposed to. I have seen coaches wave their guys in, and we don't even keep score. But I mean, that's.
I'm glad you said that. That was my next question, because I'll ask you this. Because when mine played T-ball and I coached T-ball, it was the same thing. You didn't keep score, but trust me, those kids knew
they know
who won. And it was as easy as this. Everybody scored, right? So if all 11 of your players showed up and the other team only had 9, you win 11-9.
No, but we get outs. If he gets out, he's off the base. He doesn't get to run. So it gives the kids a reward if they actually can pick up the ball and throw it to first and make a catch.
Nice.
Because of the great first base coaching.
Yes.
Then your team will excel. So yeah.
So this is the beginning.
I'm on the path.
Your coaching is in its infancy right now, and not even in the sport you played as a pro.
I can't take it. I get so mad. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's a lot of fun. No, so I think maybe
you don't get
someday.
Mad. You don't get mad until they're 12, still making the same mistakes they made in T-ball.
Oh yeah. I see your son Matthew back there. Oh, he's not listening.
No, he's not. No, Braden's here.
Braden.
Matthew's at a birthday party today. So
oh yeah.
Braden's got
the headset on.
Yeah,
listening.
he was smart.
Or are you listening to us?
No,
there you go.
No, he's not listening to us. Justin Farrell has this question. I know the first answer to this. Who was the toughest guy you fought? You've talked about Bob Probert many, many times. But here's the better part of the question for me. Who do you think is the toughest fighter now?
Who do I think is the toughest fighter?
Now that you're retired, I guess, who would be the toughest?
There's the guy. McGrattan is obviously tough. I mean, he's both street tough and he's tough on the ice. And what I mean by that is, like, when you see him in his street clothes, you think, boy, that guy's tough. He's tattooed up. He's 6'5". He almost enjoys. You can tell he enjoys it, and so that's a certain kind of tough. The guy in Colorado, the big guy, he really impressed me. I think he had a bunch of points too this year. Bordelot, he's a really big guy at the Quebec League. I would put those guys up there in 1-2. And our guy is Jared Boll. We didn't see much of him due to injury. He didn't get active much, but I fought Jared. I've seen him stand up to anyone. He's got that mentality where he's a team-first guy, and I know that presence here at Nationwide Arena is great. So I'd put those guys at the top 3 in the league.
And when you look at those 3 guys and you talk about it, it also tells you how much fighting has changed. And what I mean is these 3 guys are tough and they can fight, but and of the 3, McGrattan is probably the one that you don't think you think the least about him is being a regular shift player and playing. But you've got to be able to play. You can't just go out and fight anymore. All three of those guys can do that.
That's right. And McGrattan has found a role in Calgary that they're playing him there. So that's very very good for him. It's a credit to what he can do and skate and handle the puck and be reliable. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the modern day fighter is more than just a guy that can sit on the bench. We know that. I've played long enough now that it's had to evolve. I've had to evolve. And I think Jared is more of the new age fighter where he could play actually 10 to 12 minutes a game. He could not worrying about fighting for an entire 82-game season and just let the fights come to him. And I think it's more of a circumstance thing now than hey, I know that we're playing Chicago tonight. I know Bob Probert's in the lineup. I'm going to make sure I fight him 2 or 3 times.
All right, Jody Shelley with me today here on CBJ in 30. We'll talk about the Stanley Cup Final here in a little bit. But while we're talking about Blue Jacket stuff, let's just
wait a second. You don't have any commercials?
No, there are no commercials on this.
You don't have any sponsors?
No.
Well, you do a great job though, Bob. I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun to listen to you talk, and you do a great job with this show. So I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you listening to it.
Well, I got a little downtime.
You must be driving around town a lot. See,
No.
30
Mowing
minutes.
my lawn. It's
right,
quick.
Right. And for driving around Columbus, if you are driving, that's about perfect. You can
It
get
is
anywhere
perfect.
in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
No doubt. Here's a good question. It comes from CBJ Therapy. It says, if you had a chance, how would you sell the Blue Jackets to pending unrestricted free agents? Why should they come to Columbus?
Well, that's you would think that'd be a tough answer, but if you look at the run that these guys took last year, going into that, trying to make the playoffs with Sergei Bobrovsky, coming up one point short in a lockout season, him winning the Vezina Trophy, and then parlaying that into this season. I don't care where you were this year, if you were in Nashville or if you were in Russia watching these games at home, these playoff games at home, the thrill that was in this building, Game 6, when the Jackets lost, it ended their season. But the fans and the way the noise escalated and stayed there, the passion you could feel, you could see it coming through your radio, or feel it coming through your radio, see it coming through your TV set. There is a sense of pride in this town for these athletes, and to be a part of a team like this, I think every athlete and every organization would like to have a hard-working identity team that doesn't quit. And I think that in itself, the product, if you can be a player that can fit in one of those 20 stalls down there, then you're privileged. I think if you're in this league, it's privileged. But to be a part of something that's young, up and coming, and a part of a city that's one of the best sports cities you'll ever witness, if you can be a part of that, then boy, you're a lucky individual. So I would say the list for Columbus, it might not have been long. Might not have been on many players' lists a few years ago, but there's players that will follow Nathan Horton's lead that'll say, well, what about Columbus? It seems like a great sports city. It's not tucked away in San Jose or Florida. It's in that Midwest. It's close to Canada. It seems to be ideally situated. There's a lot of good things here. And of course, the fans would be so the organization, the players, that room, and the fans. Those would be the 3 things for me to sell this city. And that's that's on ice stuff. You talk about on ice in this city. It's an easy sell, and you and I mean, we've had conversations and had people in this city where it's like, oh, you need to go to dinner, or what? You're looking to shop. What are you looking to do? It's bang, bang, bang. Go here, go there, go try this, try that, and they're like, whoa, really? There's all that here? And yeah, this is Columbus, Ohio.
Absolutely. And, it's funny you say that they'll follow Nathan Horton's lead. And ironically, most of what this team did this last year was without Nathan Horton because he was never 100%. Played a little bit. So when you talk about unrestricted free agents, it's almost as though you're getting one with him coming back healthy this year. But beyond that, do you think there will be a lot of activity in those regards for this team?
I think there will, and they always say that for the better of the team, and that's what will be done. If there's something that they can upgrade, a position they can upgrade, they will do it. And the mindset is here. Yeah, they have a young core, the Boone Jenners, I think, the Ryan Murrays, and the Ryan Johansson, Sergei Bobrovsky, Matt Calvert. There's a group of young Dalton Prout, young guys that have a lot of character and really get it and have a sense of what this is about, right? And that's important too, Bob. And we spoke of that also this year. When the players get a sense of what this area is about and what these fans are about and what they expect of their players, then the players get it and they feel that type of pressure. It's not a pressure to be a hero. It's a pressure to be hardworking and be a part of the fabric of this organization and the group. That's what these fans are proud of. So when you have this group, this young group, yeah, there's man, it'll be they'll make additions, and there's still no captain. So leadership will rise. It'll be another year. The guys will be another year older. Maybe someone comes from within. Maybe there's people out there. I know Callahan wore the captain wore the C in New York. We all know that. So who knows what they do? We're speculating, but I would say that yes, there'll be something done to upgrade this team.
Well, you talk about leadership. Jake tweets in and says, how do you think the team will do in the coming seasons without the leadership of R.J. Umberger? That is, if the team is able to work a deal as reported he asked for a couple of weeks ago. And my answer to that question would be they'll be fine in the leadership department. And that's not a knock on that player. It's talking about some of the guys that you were just mentioning. Boone Jenner is going to be a second-year player who has learned a lot and is going to step into a bigger leadership role. Ryan Murray's going to step into a bigger leadership role. The one thing about it is, even though there's not a clear-cut captain, that doesn't mean there are no leaders, because there's a wealth of leadership in that room.
Right, and that's the key. That's the key. It's by committee. So if you think you're removing the leader in R.J. Umberger, well, you're not, because that's not what this team is about. So if you followed this team and you've read the articles, you understand that everyone has to pull their weight in every category, and leadership is one of the big ones. So, and Todd Richards is his value, one of his biggest parts of his job, I guess, would be to provide that leadership. Everyone looks to someone. I mean, Todd looks to JD and Yarmo. They're the leaders. They look to the ownership. So everyone has to look up the ladder. So to have Todd Richards in the room, who's not a very old guy, who's coached a lot of young players, who knows how to push different buttons, that's the leader. So removing one or two players, no, that's not an issue to what they're doing here. They're not going to remove the core of the team. They're just going to remove a few pieces to add and get better. And they have to get better. If you think about this, and it's an interesting concept, it's an interesting conversation, and I think we had it too, is everybody is going to get better. So if you stay the same, you're getting worse, right? Because even you look at Toronto didn't make the playoffs. You think they're just going to try again and give it the old college try next year and hope they do better with a few lucky bounces? Washington made big changes. Buffalo is going to have big changes. All these teams that didn't make it and weren't even close, Long Island.
Yeah, they've already gotten a new goaltender.
They're going to get way better. So if you think that, boy, if our team would have made it to the second round this year is the second round is gone. Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, they're going to make big changes.
Yep.
So
already started.
You got to be considerably better next year. And that's the tough part. That's the job that you see Yarmo and JD and Bill Zito and their staff around. You bump into them in the office, and they're not just coming in and with the suntan. They're like grinding it out this time of year.
Right.
Draft picks, free agency. What are they going to do? What are other teams doing? It's an interesting science.
You talked about Todd Richards a moment ago, and let me ask you to put your skates back on as a player.
Love to.
Knowing that your head coach is now signed for the next 3 years. When you talk about stability, and again, a lot of guys want to know who's going to be behind that bench. Are things going to stay the same right there? How big a move is that?
It's great, and I think that it's for the reason that if there's any consideration that he might have one foot out the door, or they're pushing him out the door, or there's any seed of doubt, well, that's put to rest. So there's something else that they don't have to think about. So I think it kind of settles things down. It's a nice little statement for the guys. And after that contract is signed and they know he's there, well, it's good in a way, but it's great in the sense that, hey, there's going to be no change there with Todd being here long term. When
I first started doing the show a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people wanted to talk about the prospects and what prospect are you most excited about seeing. And I have one here. Now, the name on this Twitter account is Reichel, but I'm sure this is not Kirby Reichel. I'm pretty sure anyway.
Well, it could be. Yeah.
But it says, what prospect are you most looking forward to joining the team for this upcoming season? And before we get into that, I've said this, and I just want to know if you agree with me. I feel that we're now moving past the point of who's the next great prospect, or not that you don't want them to play here, because if they're good enough to play, you want them to play. But the point is, no longer do you have to push guys into roles that they're not ready for, because there's so many that have the experience now. It used to be just go back 3-4 years. You're going, oh my goodness, who's the next guy coming that might be able to turn this around? It doesn't feel like that anymore.
No, and it's not about the guy that just got drafted. It's not going to be about the kid that gets drafted this year in the draft. And I think you're right, Bob. If he comes in and he's a man and he improves the team, like Wenberg said, he's wants to come over here and get a job. He wants a jersey. Well, that's that's the attitude you want to hear, but that's a tall hill to climb in this organization now. When I was in San Jose, it was a deep organization. Logan Couture was in the minors, and he had to earn his way in the front door. And I remember Jamie McGinn used to get called up. He'd score 2 goals and 1 assist and have 2 great games, and he'd have his ticket back to Worcester, across country. And he would be like, what is going on? Well, now he's an established NHL player in Colorado. And there's just there's a lot of value in that. And I think looking back, I know you appreciate coming up in the minors, and we see players that have earned their way here, and you look back and you think, wow, that was really good for me. At the time, I thought I was ready, but I wasn't ready. It's the old bull, young bull type story that we know about. And so, you look at that, and yeah, it would be exciting for Reichel or Wenberg to come in, but their growth is so valuable that they will be put in the best position to succeed. And if that means going to the minor leagues and learning the way the professional game is, or maybe they already know it, well, guess what? Maybe they're ahead of the curve and we don't know. But they have an opportunity in rookie camp. That's in July. Then they have an opportunity in training camp in September, October, to prove that they're supposed to be here in exhibition games. So all those statements, all those doors will be open to these players. But I think the bottom line is they'll be put in a position to succeed and to earn their way on this team. But you're right. It's not about the guys that got drafted. I just saw Chaput leaving the rink actually about 45 minutes ago when I was walking in. He just finished training. He was with another young kid. I don't know who it was, a little stocky guy. But they're not here just to enjoy Columbus, Ohio and the beaches.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely not. Michael Chaput, it's funny you mentioned him. I forgot. He actually had a good chunk of time up here, and he filled a fourth-line role. He did a good job.
There's your prospect. I mean, that's the prospects you're looking at. You're not talking about the flashy guys in the draft. Those days are done, and that's a great point by you.
Yeah, Kirby Reichel and Alexander Wenberg, the 2 guys you mentioned, those will be the guys to watch, and they're going to be this year's Boone Jenner, Ryan Murray, because they will come to those camps, and they will have an opportunity, but it's going to depend what they do with that opportunity, because even Ryan Murray, yes, a second overall draft pick and a much heralded guy, but you look at the history of John Davidson, Jarmo Kekalainen when they were in St. Louis. Alex Pietrangelo is now one of the premier defensemen in this league, but he spent time in the minor leagues until they felt that he was ready. They didn't just plop him into a role in the NHL, and the same would have happened with Ryan Murray. Had he not earned a spot on the team, he would have been in Springfield and he would have played there, but he was better than that. Boone Jenner was better than that. Those 2 guys, do you agree? Those 2 guys, Wenberg and Reichel, will be in those 2 spots this year to see if they're good enough to play here.
Yes, I agree with you. And there could be other prospects that we're not talking about.
Well, the kid that was in here yesterday, the Hjalmarsson kid, Simon Hjalmarsson, who just signed from Sweden, 25 years old, was 3rd in the Swedish league in scoring. He'll have an opportunity. I don't know how that'll all pan out with the adjustments he'll have to make to the NHL rink and the way the game is played and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of guys.
There's a lot of guys, and you're not going to tell them, no, you're not going to make the team, but you're going to tell them to come in, and we're going to do what's best for you and the organization so that you will be a long-time NHL player. And you know what? Who knows? A couple of these guys could come in and make this team, and that would be wonderful.
Let me ask you about this guy, Tim Erickson. Where does it shake out for him, do you think? Because he was a point-a-game player in the American League this year when he was healthy. Unfortunately, when he was not healthy is right at the time when the Blue Jackets needed somebody in the NHL. Other than that, they were pretty healthy on the blue line all year long. So it had to be a tough year for him. He spent a lot of time here and didn't play. He was hurt in the American Hockey League. But do you think this is – well, I would guess with this organization, it's going to be he must be at that breaking point, either going to make it or not going to make it here.
Now, is he a free agent or is he –
I think he's let me look it up here.
Well, I think I'll tell you what I've learned about him, and just from his teammates love him.
Yes,
and you saw it and you heard it from a lot of his teammates. So that tells you a lot about Tim Erickson. He's a very laid-back person. He's a guy that loves his teammates and is a team-first guy, and I didn't know that about him. I just saw him on the ice as a pretty skilled guy on defense, a guy that's growing physically and maturing on the ice. He definitely is a weapon out there. You'd love to see a guy like that fit in on this team, but where does he fit in? I guess that would be the question. Is Nikitin coming back? They have to make those decisions. Do you let Nikitin go and let Eriksson fill that spot? I don't know. You got some horses on the back end. Is Tim Eriksson ready to go back to the minors and hope to be that utility guy again? Does he have to go back with his injuries and earn his way back up here? Or does he want to try his chance with another organization that can say, hey, Tim, we want you to play 70 games with our team this year and fill things out. So I think he is a free agent. So we'll see there. But he's a guy, he's a guy that you'd love to see him stay, but he's such a good kid and such a nice guy. If he goes somewhere and has success, you'd have to be happy for him too.
Yeah, and you're right. When he was here and he spent all that time here, he never complained about it whatsoever when he wasn't playing. He's a restricted free agent, yes. So yeah, you got to make some decisions on him, and I guess again, this is a good thing. Who do you bump out? Who are you able to bump out to get that spot? And that's the point.
And there will be injuries, but you can't tell Tim, there will be injuries. You just have to go to Springfield and wait. That's a tough position to put in because I feel he's kind of earned his right to have a legitimate shot at this team.
Yeah,
or a team, I should say.
Yes, and he's done like I said, he has done a very good job in the role that he has been given, and of course he wants to have a bigger role in the organization. There's no question about it. Draft coming up here at the end of the month. The Blue Jackets will pick 16th in the draft. Again, that's something that's changing. There were so many years that you're picking in the top 5 or the top 10, and now all of a sudden you're down to number 16. And last year was so exciting because you had 3 first-round draft picks, and you go from that to having a mid-pick there at number 16. But, again, these are good things. I'm just interested to see, once the playoffs are over and we start to get closer to the draft, there's a lot of rumors about a lot of wheeling and dealing, but there's always a lot of rumors, and a lot of times those rumors don't pan out. Do you think there's going to be a lot of movement this year?
I think so, and I say that because you have some big dogs, some media-driven markets that underachieved and had made big changes. Brendan Shanahan is one of them. The draft is in Philadelphia, and they don't have a pick until later. I think it's, 14 or 16, somewhere around us, I think.
Yeah.
So I can't see them. You remember when Pittsburgh had the draft, they moved up, traded Stahl to Carolina with his brother. That was a big move in the draft. Lamoriello last year made a big move. That wasn't in New Jersey, was it?
Yes.
It was in New Jersey. That was a huge move.
Schneider.
But I can't. I think there will be big moves just because those big. Philly never sits quiet. Never will. Never have. Never will. And especially as the host, that's their town. They'll put on a show. I'm sure of it. Toronto. Like I just said, Brendan Shanahan will put his mark on his team at some point. I think his first opportunity really is the draft. He didn't get hired before the trade deadline, did he? I don't think he did.
No, he just got hired at the end of the year.
Yeah, so he's a guy that is waiting, chomping at the bit to make his mark.
Right.
And then Pittsburgh. You hear the rumors. Okay, well they don't have a new GM. They don't have a new GM yet. So that'll happen. It might be Pierre, and if it's Pierre, let's not even talk about that.
You can't even say it with a straight face.
So it could be. What do I know?
The interesting thing, the biggest story there though, is not even not having a GM right now. It's the fact that their coaching staff is still in limbo until they hire a GM, and that guy will decide if Dan Bilesma remains the head coach or not. And what do you think as a former player? With a guy twisted in the wind like that, is there any chance Dan Bilesma's behind the Penguins bench next year?
I guess.
But it's hard to think, isn't it? Wouldn't you think a new guy is going to
I just think you leave your rink, you leave for your summer scratching your head like, what is going on? But obviously they're sensitive to what's going on between the players, Sidney Crosby, and the organization. Those things I think are run by Sidney in somewhat. Maybe after the fact, maybe before, whatever. But coaching is a pretty big position when you're talking about the best player in the world in that team. There's some big contracts there. It's well written that they're going to have a few dilemmas with bringing players back as far as what they're carrying as huge. Some of the biggest contracts, I think 2 of the biggest in the league, as far as Malkin and Crosby, and then put Letang in there. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing with the coach there, though. it's an interesting dynamic, and they got to get that situated, don't they? Pretty soon before the draft, you would think.
You would think they'd want to at least have a general manager before the draft, right? Which is coming up in 22 days.
Yeah,
3 weeks.
So maybe when the Cups. I mean, maybe I don't
well,
know. Maybe
Jason,
this week.
Jason Botterill is the interim GM. He was the assistant, so he's still running. He and the scouting staff are still running everything. So they'll be ready for the draft to be ready to do what they're going to do.
Oh, I see.
So will Jason Botterill get the job on a permanent basis? And see, even that now looks. If you fire the GM, promote the assistant GM, and keep the coaching staff, I don't know
nothing.
What
That's
did
a
you
lateral.
what did you accomplish?
Nothing.
Right? I mean, in Washington, they fired the GM, promoted the assistant GM, but they did bring in Barry Trotz to be the coach.
Right.
So at least there's they did make a big change. In that.
Right. And you're talking from the player's perspective too, right? I mean, that's obviously what you have to be sensitive to is. What are the players like? They got to know that we have a firm and solid direction to follow, and I think that those concise decisions, those decisions that are abrupt and straightforward, where you know that they have a plan, whether you like it or not, they have a plan and they're going forward with it. I think there's some value in that. So obviously we know way less than they do because we're speculating here, but it is interesting to watch that whole scenario from the outside. And I can see them at the draft having to do something. You?
I thought you were an expert.
Oh, I was, but this is the off season, so I'm kind of a part-time expert.
I thought. Oh,
Are you an expert all year round?
I thought there was a big-time GM that told you were an expert. You were.
I can't recall that, Bob.
Just in fun conversation. One more Blue Jackets question, then we'll move on to what's going on in the league right now. With Dan Hinote leaving the coaching staff, who might we see coming aboard? Any former CBJ players? David would like to know that. David, that's going to be something that I would think primarily is up to Todd Richards, who he wants to bring in as a coach, and Jarmo will have input into that as well, I'm sure. And Jody, I guess maybe part of the question is, will there be one guy or will there be two guys? Because Keith Acton left prior to last year, and Dan Hinote went to the bench and took his job there, and they didn't bring somebody else in. So I don't know if they'll stay that route. They can do that. Obviously, you saw that if you have the right people in the right roles, you do great things. But I guess there's a possibility maybe you get one, maybe you get two, and I could throw out 5 or 6 names who might be connected with Todd Richards. But the fact of the matter is I don't know.
We don't know. We could speculate, and I mean, as far as former players, who knows? I know Trevor Letowski's up in Sarnia with the Sting as an assistant coach, and there's guys that are on that coaching track. Brad Larson has done a great job, and I know they're very happy with him. But we are speculating, so I don't know who. We don't even know whose decision it is. It's probably a combination of Todd Richards and Jarmo's. They both have input that they both respect. So. Another decision that'll be made in the obviously the best light of the organization. So, I mean, there's some great candidates out there. I'm sure their phone is ringing off the hook. I know Gord Murphy is still in town. So is Gary Agnew. You know, we love those guys both.
I would love to see either of those guys come back because I think when they left here and they went to a different situation, I don't think they necessarily got a great deal in why they're now available again.
Right. No, I agree.
And they were very good coaches when they were here. So you're right. Those are two guys that jump out. And
it's amazing what you can learn when you get away from the situation you're in. You learn a lot. And, Gary Agnew with Hitch and Gord down there that was a different group down there in Florida that he dealt with. But every year you learn something, you get more mature, and you're different. Those guys could come back as different coaches. But we don't know. I mean, there's guys all over the world, I'm sure, calling these guys right now.
And we talked about the Pittsburgh situation a few minutes ago here, and that could have an impact. And I'm not suggesting that Dan Bylsma would all of a sudden be Todd Richards' assistant coach again like he was in Wilkes-Barre, but I do know that Todd got to know all of those guys pretty well during the Olympics for Team USA, Tony Granato, and, so who knows if that plays in. Peter Horacek was the head coach of the Florida Panthers. He and Todd have a history together where Peter actually gave Todd his first assistant coaching job in the International Hockey League years ago.
There's a lot of storylines.
We could give you 100 coaches that could come in if we think about it, right? But we don't know. And I'm sure that's
Mike Keenan is still available.
But it's going to be very important. And I think the unfortunate part about it is, first of all, Dan Hinote was a close friend to me and a guy I enjoyed being around. But the thing is, everybody enjoyed being around him because he's one of those. I would always tell people he could walk into a room full of strangers and walk out with 10 best friends. That's just the way he is, and I know his youthfulness was very good for this team. So to me, it's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be a little bit more of a challenging hire than you might think to replace his personality and what he brought to the table.
I agree with you, Bob, and just a really, really high-quality guy, fun to be around. And, I spoke with a couple of the players, and they're like, man, we love that guy. They absolutely love him and what he brought to the room on a daily basis. He's a guy that his whole career has understood his role and done it to a T, and he did it off the ice as an assistant coach. And the Jackets, it's a big hole to fill, but that's a decision Dan made. It's a personal decision, and you wish him the best. And but the Jackets now are in that situation where they need one, if not two, coaches here to help out.
All right, Stanley Cup Final got underway last night in Los Angeles. Rangers, Kings. The Kings take Game 1 in overtime. There's just something about these games going into overtimes this year, which is okay by me because they've been good games. I was, truth be told, I had to go back and DVR the first couple of periods because I was at the Crew game last night.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I went to Time Warner Sports invited me to the Crew game last night. It was great except for, it was the one night that felt like early March.
Right, it was freezing. But what about softball? Got canceled?
Got canceled. Yes, it did get canceled because I would have. My arm was ready. I was ready to pitch, ready to go, coming off last week's shutout. But anyway,
I'm sure that's all you talk about this week on the show.
Oh yeah. I've never mentioned that I play. What are you playing, by the way?
Well, I
understand. Every week I say, is Jody playing this week? And it's like the biggest contract negotiation to get you to play recreational softball.
Let's see. There's been 5 weeks. It's been rained out 3, so right. You've played 2 games. And one of them was a opening game where you had, I thought it was the Blue Jackets staff team, but you have former staff on the team. So I'm not going to take out a staff member. Are you with me?
Yeah.
I'm not going to take out someone from
First
IT.
of all, you're saying I have it. I'm not the GM. Let's just get that out there. I understand what you're saying. I am not. I have nothing. I show up. I throw the ball.
So I'm not going to take someone's position and let a guy who's not on the Blue Jacket staff play shortstop or whatever. And then the guy that I'm going to see in the office, me take first base or second base, and he's like, hey, Jody, how are you? Good game last night. Yeah, I don't want to do that. If it's a staff game, we're all together as a staff playing. So, and I'm not very good, so maybe that's my reason.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd like to see you at some point. And just
it's going to mess up my golf swing.
If you don't think you're that good, I'll pitch away so they hit it the other direction.
No, I can manage. I'm very competitive.
Easy. Anyway, softball got rained out. I went to the Crew game and it was a great 1-1 tie. But anyway, so I went back and then watched the first couple of periods last night. But the Rangers came out. They tried to do to the Kings, in especially the first period, what they did to the Montreal Canadiens in Game 1, where they went in and they leveled them. They caught them on that Boston hangover. And they leveled them 7-2, and they had a lot of jump in the first 2 periods last night. By the time it got to the third period, it was a different story.
Maybe a little jet lag, a lot of excitement going into that. I was going into this thinking, how excited are Derek Dorsett, Derek Brassard, Rick Nash? They got to be. First of all, they're very appreciative of where they're at. I know that just via text with a couple of them, and the excitement, the level of organization for tickets and parents and everything else that goes along with the traveling circus. And you get there, and, yeah, they were excited. They looked unbelievable. And I liked a couple comments from Darryl Sutter, and I don't know if he just acts this way or what. But Pierre Maguire went up to him on the bench, I think it was during the first period, and said, is there anything you don't like about the way your team is playing? His team just had like 4 drastic, terrible turnovers. They looked like they were on their heels. And he said, no, nothing. I think they're doing pretty good out there. And I'm like, now that is just that's nothing more than a vote of confidence saying, hey, we're going to win this. I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, this is terrible. We're fine. And then I think it was after the game? Oh, yeah, after the post-game press conference, he's sitting there and, talked about how, was it you guys on your heels or was it New York coming out flying? He said, well, no, they came out with some energy and we knew it. He said, well, I tell you, I know one thing. We had a tired group. And this is after getting the overtime win. They struggled through it. So I think that L.A. has got a lot more to do. You got to think of the travel and the way they've banged around. Chicago drug them back out to the Midwest for that Game 7. They had to go to overtime, and then they had 48 hours to get ready for the finals, which sometimes is a blessing. Sometimes to sit around and think about it is one thing, but I thought the Rangers looked great, and I think the Rangers are far from out of this series. And all of us that spoke of L.A. and the West being so dominant, hold your horses, because the New York Rangers have a phenomenal goalie. And I would be careful now, and maybe I'm thinking too much, but L.A., they don't play till Saturday. They got the first win. They were tired. They're going to come up and take a breath now of air. They better not take too much. And they're that team that, boy, they're going to mess around. They mess around, and they let teams in the games, and when their backs are against the wall, yeah, they come and get 2 or 3 goals they need. But if they're not careful, they're going to get caught here, and it might be too many games in a short period of time.
Well, I said yesterday that I felt that the only way the Rangers win is Henrik Lundqvist, and I feel that he can only steal 2 games in that series, quite frankly. And I said if the Rangers don't win Game 1, you might be looking at a short series, depending on how, it could go 5, maybe 6. So if he steals 2, it goes 6, and that's it. But I thought last night, and I'm not really pointing the finger at him, but there was one for him to steal last night. I mean, it was right there, but his team, they had no shots in the third period and into the overtime. They quit shooting the puck, and I guess when you're tied, if you can't get a shot, you're not going to win. But I thought that one was there. That one was ripe for the picking for them to get out to that 1-0 series lead.
And the opportunities they had on shorthanded, they really had L.A. on their heels. And I agree with you. I thought that it kind of set up – it had that feeling. Because every time for the first half of the game, the first 2 periods, that L.A. tried to take a shot or set up on the power play, it was like watching – if you were a fan of the L.A. Kings, you're like, whoa, like what is going on? Like the Rangers are playing that perfect defense where every stick is in the lane, every opportunity, it's about speed. All the NBC guys talked about was the speed of the Rangers, and that was great. But when you saw the speed of the L.A. Kings, I mean, it's there. It's Gabrick. I mean, there's some kids that were flying by the defense, and I thought, wow, this is –
yeah, the Pearson kid.
L.A.'s got speed. Yeah. They both have speed. They both have goaltending. So I going into this series, I would have said L.A. in 5. The way the Rangers played last night, I tell you what, I think they're going to win Game 2, and it's because L.A. has got that mind. They don't have that killer mindset until they're in a corner with their back against the wall and there's nowhere to go. Then they're like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. And they know they can do that.
Well,
I guess to
not
a point,
against
though.
Lundqvist.
Yeah, but I guess to a point, it's good to have that because you never feel out of any game. But you're right; they get down 2-0, and then all of a sudden it's 2-2.
Yeah,
and that's the way they've played these entire playoffs.
And I love what Quick said too after the game. He said, "It's not that we love winning; we hate losing." And that might sound like the same thing, but it's not. And I don't know what kind of loser you are.
Not very good.
Not very good, but it's not that you're like, okay, you win and you're like, yeah, that was fun. You're satisfied. It's not the best thing in the world. You're like, okay, great. But when you lose, it's like it hangs with you for 2 days or 3 days or however long it's got to take to play the next game. So that sets up for an incredible series, starting with the goaltending. And the penalty kill of the New York Rangers is just incredible.
You talk about maybe jet lag. You're going coast to coast in this thing, and this is going to affect both teams. I said this the other day, but what was that start time last night? 5 o'clock in the afternoon,
yeah.
Right? And then maybe the next one's at 6 o'clock or something. Here's the bottom line. You get used to starting games at 7 o'clock or 7:30 or 8 o'clock, not at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And you would know more than I would when you have a routine as a player. How do those little shifts in start times mess up your routine?
It messes you up big time because, if you have think about this. The regular game day, you eat chicken and pasta for lunch, okay? You get up at a certain time, you practice, you take a nap at a certain time. You got to shift all that. If it's an early game, when do you eat breakfast? Usually it's about 12 hours before you go to or not 12 hours, I guess it'd be if you eat breakfast at 9 in the morning or say eat at 8 in the morning, that's about 11 hours before puck drop. You're not going to do that for a 5 o'clock game. You're not going to get up at 6 in the morning or whatever it's going to be to eat that breakfast. So there's a lot of different changes, and it messes you up. What you eat, when you rest, when your body's ready to go, and sometimes you're there and you're trying to drink coffee or wake up, and it's just not happening. You talk about routines. Think about the routine. L.A. knows how to travel. L.A. knows how to travel long distances. And New York doesn't really know how to do that right now. They know how to get on a train and go to Philly an hour later, be at their hotel, or fly an hour to Columbus, or fly to Pittsburgh an hour. They got that routine. But flying west once, okay, now they got to come back after this 2 games. Then they got to go back and maybe back. I think advantage LA because I've seen players, and I know playing in the West, you see them. It's a different pack, not for clothes, but there's pillows, there's things that lay on the floor, there's eye patches or whatever, the cover. I mean, it's a long flight. So guys have their routine, how they do it, how they get through it, and I think LA has that advantage for sure.
Yeah, we talked about that during the year, the fact that the Blue Jackets are still in a Western Conference mindset when it comes to playing those games, and that will eventually go away.
And packing for 19 days when they don't need to pack for 2 nights. It's like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Whose suitcase is this?
And
Dave Metzold, yeah. He's got to transfer to the east.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to make the adjustment. A couple of questions here for you. Jody wants to know how much. Not this Jody.
Yeah, I typed this one.
Oh, you typed it. Okay. How much is the new head
for you?
How much has the new head coach of the Rangers impacted the players now that they are in the final? That's a good question. One thing about Alain Vigneault is he's been there before with the Vancouver Canucks. Not that long ago.
The final, yeah.
Yeah, they lost to Boston.
That's
Remember
right.
that
yes.
Luongo and that
street
series?
riots, yeah.
Yes, that one. So he's been there before, and so I'm sure he's brought a little bit from that standpoint. But I remember when I read this question, I remember you early in the year saying the Rangers are a mess. They've changed everything. They've gone from a shot blocking, grind it out to a guy that wants to open it up a little bit, and they're not adjusting very well. Now, this was
right. No,
November,
I remember saying
November,
that, yeah.
December, right? So you look at them
Eat
now.
my words.
No, well, they adjusted, right?
Yes.
They changed some personnel too, but they adjusted. How do you see them playing under Vigneault right now?
Well, tremendous. I mean, but they still have that kind of shot blocking mentality. But you look at some of their players, and they're more offensive. They're not just robots. And even Mark Stahl and Dan Girardi. I mean, they were strictly robots under John Tortorella. They would block shots, clear the puck, block shots, make the first pass, and get off the ice. They're allowed to be creative, and maybe they're still adjusting to it. I think Mark Stahl has been invisible. Maybe for that reason, he's kind of in between identities. And I say invisible, I mean, with respect. I mean, he's an unbelievable player and a great guy, but it's just that when you're in between roles, some guys are better told, hey, here's A, here's B, you go in between these two, and in between that you do this. That's where they find their success. So I feel like Vigneault is a little more lax in that area, a little more run and gun, and boy, and that's why you notice guys like Hagelin, Zuccarello, our friend Derek Brassard, and how about Dorsett? And he's got one shutdown line that has provided some offense, and it's a line that started the game last night. Dorsett, Boyle, and what's his name? The kid there. He's had number 28. He's had a great playoffs. He's been in the series the whole time. Dominic Moore.
Dominic Moore, yes.
So, you have these guys out there that are playing their certain roles, but they all have that ability to be creative, and their transition game has stepped up. So, I don't know. Tortorella loves and he pushes the most out of every player individually, but as a group, I think this group is playing well together also. So, I'm actually amazed because it looked like, when you get rid of Callahan, Tortorella, and then you go back to Dubinsky even, and Pruss, their identity, and now they're more Richards, St. Louis. When they make those trades, you wonder and Nash, you wonder what's going on. It seemed like a mixed bag, but they've pulled together, and there's been different instances that pulled that team together. And I wouldn't say it's all coaching. I think that you have to really rely on that group because he does have some older players there that seem to have found a way to just love each other on the ice.
Let's go for 3 more questions here, and then we'll close it out today on this extended version of CBJ in 30 with Jody Shelley joining me here today. CBJ or Die wants to know, how big or little of an impact do you believe home ice advantage has been in the playoffs so far?
That's a good question. I haven't really noticed it. I mean, I thought it would have been a huge deal to go back to Chicago and for Game 7 in the Madhouse in Madison, but it didn't work out. And maybe because the games have been so tight that it's that bounce or that play late in the game or in overtime that's really not giving you that home ice advantage. It's one thing to win 7-2 or 5-2 at home and have your power play on fire and you just feel the momentum of the building just overpowering the other team, and you could feel it here at Nationwide Arena. You remember those games here, the overtime win. You could feel it. You could feel the comeback in the last game when the fans in the building overwhelmed the Pittsburgh Penguins to the point where they took it over. I haven't seen that advantage really in any one of these series. Definitely not in L.A. Go back to the first round. I mean, San Jose you thought would have been the most intimidating building in the world. But boy, something happened where the air got let out of that tire.
Yeah, that's why names like Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau are being tossed around.
Yeah, they'll be tossed.
Changing addresses.
Yeah, they will be, I think. I don't think it's a big deal, and I think it has to do with the goaltending and the tight situations that the teams put themselves in.
All right, Mark Shag, he's got a pretty good question here. Talk about the play of Benoit Pouliot in these playoffs, and should the Blue Jackets maybe make a run at him in free agency? What have you thought of him?
I've been impressed with that guy. And when he gets the puck, I don't know about you, sometimes I think it's Rick Nash. When I'm watching on TV, I'm like, oh, there's Nasher, but it's not. Right. It's a big guy.
And it doesn't help that he's 67, and sometimes on TV you can't tell if it's a 1 or a 7. You see the 6, and you see the guy going, and you're like, oh. No.
Similar skating styles, but he's impressed me. He's got a strong work ethic, great will on the puck, and he can finish. And he's a big guy. I think he was a first-round pick with a huge amount of potential that maybe thought he could make it on his skill alone, but has really developed into a role, kind of a in between. He does the checking role and embraces it, but when he gets the opportunities below the tops of the circles, he can either make that pass or receive the pass and make a good play. So he's impressed me, probably one of the most guys as far as under the radar in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, and he and Derek Brassard have played together very well.
Yeah, the French connection.
The French connection has done a pretty good job. Yes, he was a 4th overall pick by Minnesota back in 2005.
That's a big pick.
So that is a big pick. All right, down to our last question. We talked about the Rangers there. Let's go to the other side, where last night NBC referred to Drew Doughty as the best defenseman in the NHL. Do you agree or disagree? And if you disagree, who do you think is the best?
I agree. I agree with that statement, and I wouldn't agree with you until we went to L.A. and played them. And I thought, wow, that guy is that good. And he knows he's that good. He has a presence about himself. But when he's on the ice, he's just playing hockey, and he's doing things that you can't teach. You can talk about and try to emulate what he does, but that goal last night, that was feel. And when you have that kind of feel as a defenseman coming down the ice, reading the play, making a play between the legs with his stick, defensively, he's a big guy that plays a lot of minutes, and he's just methodical. And I think he is the best defenseman in the NHL.
I loved what he said after the game. He and Justin Williams were on the platform together talking, and they asked him about his play that allowed Hagelin to come in on a shorthanded goal, and he said, I was mad, and when I get mad, I try to channel my energy in the right way. And boy, did he ever do that, coming back and scoring that goal where he dangled in there like a winger and beat Lundqvist one-on-one.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. And, I was impressed with the move. And then for him to get his head up right after the move. So he made that little move between the legs. I don't know, you remember, he received the puck and made it one motion to beat the player that was bearing down on him. He got his head up and kept it up the whole way, and just with that calm, cool collectiveness. And we watched it in slow motion after. But this is done at top speed with people closing on you. I mean, it's uncomfortable when you get below the top of the circles. It's an uncomfortable feeling. Trust me. And it's like being in a sleeping bag and trying to stick out of the puck and score. It's not easy. So but he just made that look so easy, and that was a huge play in the game. I jumped off my couch.
No, your analogies are the best. Like being in a sleeping bag and trying to stick handle.
Try it when you get home today with your son there.
Now, how about Justin Williams finishing? He's been Mr. Game 7. He was Mr. Game 1 last night. Right place, right time.
He's clutch.
Did you feel bad at all for Dan Girardi?
No.
Making that mistake?
No. That was an honest mistake. How about the mistakes Kyle Clifford made earlier in the game, too? Passing right in the middle of the ice, first shift. And I love how the coach, again, didn't say turnovers. Guys are nervous. It's one of those things, man. This is playoff hockey. Everyone's going to make a mistake. Doughty made a mistake. He made up for it. Clifford made a mistake. He made up for it. Justin Williams is he's a special, special guy, and he's not Mr. Game. I guess he is with all the numbers, but he's just clutch, man. He's just the guy you want carrying the mail late in the game, because there's little things like receiving a pass. It's not always easy to do across ice between two guys, but every time he gets it, you watch him, he receives the pass and he makes the right play. And I think if you're a coach or someone who watches a lot of hockey, if you're a coach for sure, you appreciate, or a teammate of his, you appreciate him so much that, boy, you'd love to have that guy on your team.
And a couple other guys, Dustin Brown has been – now whether they've had great series points-wise or not, I think Jared Stoll and Dustin Brown also kind of fit into that same mold, whereas they don't jump out and they're not flashy. But guess what? The puck winds up in the back of the net, and if they announce any of those three guys' names as being a part of it, it doesn't surprise you.
Yeah, and isn't that funny? And those are the oldest guys on the team, Justin Williams and Jared Stoll. And I think that's an important part of that, is when you have older guys that have to scratch and claw for every inch of the ice, but do it so well and are so reliable and still get rewarded in those situations. That might be a big part of the makeup of what that team has going for them.
Well, Alexis thinks that you should be on the show more.
All right, well, this is the first time I've been invited, Alexis, so one invitation, one show up. So maybe I'll talk to the director.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
But I think when it's only 30 minutes, I mean, I don't want to take up. You do it, you know what I mean? So you do a great job, but maybe I'll come back next week when because after it's over, I mean, what are you going to talk about?
Well, there's going to be some downtime where we're going to reassess here.
We will be on the draft
yes,
together.
I'm glad you brought that up.
In Philly.
We're going to go to Philly. We're going to be there for the first round of the draft and go over to our radio show from there, and you'll be there, and Jeff Rimmer will be there rounding up some guests for us. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun because what we talked about a little bit earlier, we get to go there this time with a lot different mindset, and who knows? We're sitting here saying the Blue Jackets are going to pick 16th, and it might not be that eventful, but anything can happen at the draft.
Could be very interesting. We don't know, and Jeff tells me that I need to get some rest. I'm actually going to the NHL Awards in Vegas early in that week.
Are you getting an award?
I'm not getting an award. I'm not getting an award that I know of.
You're going from Vegas to Philly?
Yeah, so Jeff told me to get rest in Vegas because Philly is a work trip. He said it's a lot of work. So I'm looking forward to that.
Just think of that statement. Get rested in Vegas.
I know, but
that
he did say it. I heard him say it.
Well, I believe he said it. When's the last time he was in Vegas?
I don't know, but I'm going to try to get rest in Vegas, Bob, so I can work in Philly. So,
all right. Well, it sounds good.
But I got to get these draft. I mean, it's interesting. You cover teams, NHL teams, but the other dynamic is how about if we get to know these players, these top 30, top 60, top, 120 of these guys that we might have to, it's going to be interesting to know what's going on that day in those 2 days in Philly. So to do some studying, I guess. I'm sure you're well on your way.
Your education continues. Young Jedi.
That's right.
That's what it's going to be. Before we close it out, happy birthday to Cam Atkinson today, by the way. He's getting lots of Twitter love, so Jody and I will send out the happy birthday to Cam Atkinson. That'll do it for today's extended CBJ in 30. I'll be back here tomorrow, once again, 11:30. We'll go back to the standard format. And the Stanley Cup Final doesn't resume until Saturday night. 2 days off for the Rangers and the Kings, and then they're back at it in Los Angeles on Saturday. Thanks to Jody Shelley for coming in and joining me today. Thanks for your questions and your comments. It was great. Until tomorrow, this is Bob McElligott saying thank you and so long.